Everyone, good evening. My name is Stella Umuna, and I'm the PQD of District 46. Tonight, we have the great honor of hearing about how to give constructive evaluations. And who's giving this session today? Our wonderful District 46 champion, 2025 champion of the evaluation contest. She's going to give us all the tidbits and she's going to give us some strategies as to how to give constructive feedback. So without further ado, let's welcome Lexi Milano to the virtual stage. Take it away, Lexi.
Thank you so much, Stella. Before I get started, can everyone hear and see me okay? Good. And I'm going to share my screen because I do have, oh wait, let's see. Or maybe, would you be able to give me permission?
Yes, I'll make you co-host. So.
But I'm excited to see you all here tonight to share all my tips and tricks on how to give an effective evaluation.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, can you all see my screen? And you see it in full screen? Perfect. So good evening, everyone. Are you looking to enhance your evaluations when you step up at a club, or if you want to compete at the next evaluation contest? Tonight, I'll be sharing with you all of my tips and tricks on how to give feedback in the best way possible to inspire speakers to do even more. A little overview of what I'll go over tonight. I'm going to start by going over what to do before the evaluation, because that can be just as important as when you get up on stage to give your evaluation. For this part, I'll discuss the speaker's goals. I'll go over organizing your thoughts, as well as how you can enhance your vocabulary. Once you get to the actual evaluation, I'll go over how to ditch your evaluation sheet, highlight the strengths of a speech, provide constructive feedback in a positive way that motivates the speaker to continue on, and how you can conclude with a strong closing statement to get the audience to really think about the speech and your evaluation. To start off, I think before the evaluation is just as important as when you get up there. Before you even get to the club, it's great to meet with the speaker. It could be a phone call, an email, message, in person, and see what they are working to improve. Do they have any focus areas they are targeting, a specific goal they want to achieve? If you can ask them before you get to the speech and evaluation part, it can help you to really target the evaluation so the feedback is more meaningful to the speaker. This also gives you the opportunity to have something in mind when you're listening to the speech. If the speaker is looking to improve vocal variety, you can keep that in mind as they're speaking. And if they go up and down or use different pitch and tones, then you can take good notes on how effective it is. That brings me to my next point, which is organizing your thoughts. If you're going to a club, you often will have the evaluation sheet. It can be the targeted evaluation sheet for a specific pathways project, or if you don't have that, you can use the general evaluation sheet. With this sheet, it breaks it down by the strengths of the speech, areas to improve, and one of my favorite parts, a challenge for the speaker. If you bring this sheet with you to your club, as the speaker is speaking, you can take notes on what was done really effectively, how they can enhance the speech, and what you might like to challenge them on. I do want to point out in the last slide about meeting with the speaker, if you're doing a contest, you won't have this opportunity, because to keep the playing field level, no one knows who the speaker is until that day. So if you're going to compete in a contest the next time the evaluation contest is up, you won't be able to meet with the speaker beforehand, but you can consider past evaluations and what people were targeted. When organizing your thoughts at a contest, you have a blank sheet of paper. It does have some instructions on it, but it won't give you the breakdown of looking at strengths, areas to improve, and a challenge. So I always take that in mind when I'm going into a contest, to put these sections on my sheet of paper. That way, as the speaker is sharing their beautiful story, I can keep track of what they've done well and can improve. It's also good to keep in mind the evaluation criteria. That would be on the back of the evaluation sheet, things like vocal variety, body language, and much more. If you think about this while the speaker is speaking, you can see what they do really well, what they can add, and if there's something that would make it even better. The final thing I like to consider while I'm taking notes during the speech is, what is the main message? First of all, is the main message clear? Does it make an impact? And how did they convey it to the audience? Those are just some tips on what you can do while the speaker is speaking to get you ready to get up and do your evaluation. My final piece of advice before you get up on stage for the evaluation is to enhance your vocabulary. Many of us, myself included at times, might have crutch words. Do you often get up and say, I loved when the speaker did this. I loved when the speaker did this. I love this. Perhaps that is your favorite phrase. Maybe you have something else that you often say to convey your message about what the speaker did well and can improve. I'd like you all to think about some of the vocab you use on a consistent basis and what power words you can use instead. Right now, I can't see the chat, but if you want to go ahead and put in some of the favorite words you use in evaluations, and think about words that you could substitute that will make a bigger impact. This could be words like enhance, elevate, bring it to the next level. Some examples for you to consider: if you say something like, I loved when, you can turn that into, I was inspired by. Just the change in a few words can leave a bigger impact on the audience and the speaker. If you were to say something like, to improve the speech, you could say instead, to elevate the speech even further. It also goes along with the tone and the pitch that you use. If you act encouraging and positive, that can have a nice effect as well. And my last example for enhancing your vocabulary is if you were to say something like, I like how confident the speaker was. Instead, you can say, the speaker exuded confidence. With just a few changes to some words that you select, you can make a big impact and convey your message in a better way. Now, I've just given you some tips on what to do before you get to the evaluation. But then You have to get up on stage in front of your club, in front of a contest, and you need to give the evaluation that will be beneficial to the speaker so they can go on with their Toastmasters journey and continue to improve and take what you said and run with it. One of my first pieces of advice during the evaluation, which also might be the most daunting, is to ditch your evaluation sheet. Oftentimes, we like to get up on the stage and bring the sheet with us because it will have all of our notes, what they did well, can improve, a challenge, how you rated the person on all of the different criteria. But I think if you get up on that stage without that sheet, you carry yourself differently. If you go up with your sheet, you may be looking down, slightly hunched over, and you don't assert yourself with strong confidence. If you don't have that sheet with you, you can be confident, have the ability to increase your body language because you won't be carrying a sheet with you, and your voice may project even further because you might not be looking down. To ditch your evaluation sheet, it might seem daunting, so I'll go over a few of my little tricks on how you can work yourself up to this, because I bet not a lot of you will want to stand up without your sheet at your next evaluation in a club. And I don't blame you. It took me time to get to that point. If you want to give this a try, I would suggest to start small. You can go up with your sheet, but see if you can talk to the audience about your main points without looking at it. Maybe you need to take a chance and look at it occasionally, but see if you can, over time, reduce the amount that you look at your sheet. Maybe the next step would be if you present your evaluation in front of a podium. If your club has a podium, you could put the sheet on top of the table or anything that's there and walk around and give your evaluation without holding the sheet. It can still be in front of you in case you need to reference it, but this is another way to ease into it. Over time, if you continue to practice and give that a shot, one day you might get up there and decide you will leave the evaluation sheet on your seat and you will walk up and give it without looking at anything. I find if I practice this, I feel more connected to the speaker and the speech, because during the beginning, when I'm taking notes, I'm really trying to absorb what they say and come up with what I will say and ingrain that in my brain without having something to look at. So I'd like to challenge all of you going forward to think about getting up and doing an evaluation without your sheet. It may take time, who knows, it may take months or years or weeks, but any small step of improvement can bring you closer to that. The next part of the evaluation would be highlighting the strengths. I'd like to consider during the speech, what aspect did the speaker excel in? Was there anything they did that was phenomenal, that blew your mind? And how did that have an impact on the entire speech? While you look at the strength and you give this feedback, I think it's important to include examples. If you liked how they used their body language, give an example of what they did in their speech, how they said it, and how they moved to convey their point. If it's something like vocal variety you loved, use the tone and the pitch and the volume that they did when they said it. This can help encourage your speaker to want to keep doing what they did well and motivate them to keep going and want to do another speech soon. Next is another one of my favorite parts, which is providing the constructive feedback. I think it's very important to give constructive feedback in a positive way. The way that you speak and how you convey the message makes a big difference. I don't know about all of you, but if I were to give a speech and I got a lot of criticism, I would probably leave feeling like I didn't do a great job. If you can use your tone of voice and speak in a positive and uplifting way, it can help motivate the speaker and make them want to continue and feel good about themselves. I know some people will sometimes use the sandwich method, which is started with the positive, then going into the critique, and then ending with the positive. But I like to look at it as you start with the strengths, you give feedback in a positive way, and then you continue on. So if the sandwich method works for you, you can continue to do that, but think of how you can give the feedback on what they can improve upon in the most positive and encouraging way. Some examples could be the speech would be even better if they did this. Or I would like to challenge the speaker to incorporate more of this. That is a nice way of saying that if they had more of something, it would be even better without saying that you did not like that aspect of it. My final thing in terms of constructive feedback that is helpful is making sure you give actionable items that have concrete examples. If you were to get up and say, I wish you included more vocal variety and left it at that, that might leave the speaker with, well, I thought I included it. What could I have done better? If you give an example, like the speaker said, I loved the purple flowers in the meadow. If you want to make a bigger impact, you could say, if they used vocal variety, they could say instead, I loved the purple flowers in the meadow. That adds emotion. And it gives an example to the speaker of what they can do and what they can include in the future to make a bigger impact. Giving the examples gives the speaker a vision of what they can do. And it might be something they never thought of. I know I have gotten feedback from people, and I've been very grateful for it because it was something I never even considered. And taking that with me to future speeches made me look at things in a completely different outlook. Finally, to make your evaluation the best that it can be, I love concluding with a strong closing statement. You can even think of it like a speech. When you're giving a speech, you often want to end with a call to action or give the audience something to think about. Well, you can do this with evaluations as well. One thing to consider when you're concluding your evaluation is a summation of all the points you stated. This is especially important when you get to a contest, if you want to compete there, because summation is one of the criteria that you'll be judged on. The summation would include everything the speaker did well, the areas they can improve on, and maybe a challenge you might have for them. So if you include everything that you stated summed up into a sentence or two, that can leave the audience with the feeling that they know exactly what the speaker did and can do in the future. And then when you close out, I think it's best if you end with an impact. You can give a call to action that's related to the speech. You can include the summation and say that if they were to do this, this, and this combined with this, it would bring them to the next level to give the best speech that they can give. Ending with an impact will get the audience and the speaker to think about what you've said for longer. They might consider it more because of your presence, because of how you said it, and because of what you said. So overall, if you consider things before you get up to evaluate, including speaking with the speaker ahead of time, having your notes organized throughout, and including more vocab as you go along, this can help you. In terms of the vocab, maybe after tonight, you might want to go home and think about what you use commonly. Or maybe at the next club meeting, when you give an evaluation, you'll notice I use this word a lot. And you can think about this and find more powerful words. You could even write it on a Post-it, keep it in your back pocket, have a glossary of terms that are powerful and encouraging that you bring with you to every evaluation and try to use in different ways. If you take that and go over the strengths, the feedback in an encouraging and positive way, and end with a strong concluding statement, it will take you to the next level. And like I said earlier, I think all of you can consider ditching your evaluation sheet for a future meeting to give yourself a nice challenge. And with that, I conclude what I have to say for tonight. But if anyone has any questions or comments, something you want to go over about evaluations, please let me know. And I love in the chat some of the power words people are using. I think it can be fun to add these words. Okay, I see have some hands. The first one I see is, oh, I might say this name wrong. I apologize. Ronke.
Yeah, Lexi, thank you for that. The name is Ronke. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Honestly, evaluation is an area that I struggle with, and I don't like giving evaluation. But the last time I attended something like this, they taught us a shortcut, like a chit chat for evaluation. That was I can't remember what it's called, but like the bingo is a matrix of 12 key items, which is shorter. But my question for you now is, I have 2 to 3 minutes to give an evaluation. Now, while the speaker is speaking, sometimes I'm even lost in thought. Like, where am I? What's she saying? How do I evaluate her? Apart from even knowing ahead of time what she wants me to focus on. But there could be some areas that I think, even though the speaker has not mentioned to me, but I think is necessary. So I want something I can work on, like that would make me want to give an evaluation and not run away from giving evaluation. Like you mentioned some using keywords, like, yeah, so I appreciate that. But I just want a short framework, like 1, 2, 3. And that's what I focus on. And I think I learned somewhere in the, I think in pathways that is advisable to give 2 to 3 suggestion, and not more than that, because when you give too many, then it becomes very challenging.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My suggestion for you, like you said, while someone's giving a speech, there might be a lot is going on. You're trying to consider what is done well, what you can improve, and turn that into an evaluation in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I would advise you, like you said, you don't want to overwhelm the speaker with many different points. So if you notice 3 main points that the speaker is doing, it can be stuff they're doing well, maybe what they asked you to focus on. But like you said, you might see areas that can be developed further that they didn't point out. And you can still include that to give them the feedback. So I would say focus on a few things, because in future speeches, someone else may address more, or you could meet with the speaker after and say, these are also some points. But when you give the evaluation, focus on the areas you connect to most and you feel that you can give the most feedback on. I hope that might help you in a way. And I think you can continue to give evaluations and improve.
Thank you for that.
Okay, next I see a hand, Bathsheba.
Thank you, Lexi. I have to tell you that if I was your evaluator right now, I'd say your pace was awesome. We followed it. It was everything that we needed to do. It was very calming. Now, I do have a question for you. I don't mind doing evaluations. I actually like them. My issue with evaluation has always been the challenge at the end. And I've heard people, like when I give a speech now, oh, your speech was great, and I just don't know what kind of challenge to give you. And then every now and then I'll hear a speaker give a speech, and I'm like, oh my God, what challenge? So can you enlighten us on some generic challenges that we can share with our speakers?
Some of my favorite things to challenge a speaker on, which I take notice to when they get up and give their speech. One of my favorites is a call to action. Sometimes people don't include one, or it's unclear and can give a better impact. So that is probably one of my favorite things to say as a challenge, to include that or include more aspects into it. I've also been, sometimes I think outside of the box. If it's a really phenomenal speech and I'm trying to figure out what I can suggest, I have suggested things like if they were talking about working with people and how they interact with them, bringing up a panel and having something outside of the box that you might not usually think for a speech. Also, if they use vocal variety well, but you think they can push it even further. Like, I know I tend to be a little more monotonous, a little more calm. So even if there is vocal variety, if they can challenge it even further, and if you have a suggestion of what they can say to blow it out, like blow your mind, that can be helpful. And then my third thing, which I love to challenge people on, is body language and the use of the space. Sometimes people will have phenomenal body language, but they're on a giant stage and they've stayed in the middle the entire time. How can they use the space, even if it's at a different location, a place they've never been before, to make the impact? So those would be my few suggestions on what you can challenge people on and keep an eye out for.
Thank you. That was great.
Okay. Next, I see Bob share.
Hey, Lexi, thank you for your presentation today. It's some really sound advice that you've given all of us. I do appreciate it. Question for you, though. I've heard evaluations that are aimed directly at the speaker, where the evaluator is speaking directly to the speaker. And then there are evaluations where the evaluator is speaking to everybody else, explaining what the speaker did well. It's like a second person versus third person kind of thing. Do you have any, your personal preference as to which one might be more effective than the other?
I think I typically gravitate towards talking about the speaker to everyone. I think it has its place depending on the speech and the circumstance. But the one thing I would recommend is to be consistent. If you start by addressing the speaker, don't switch and start talking about what the speaker said. And vice versa. If you start addressing the audience and saying that this person said this, and then you look at the speaker and said, I think you did this really well, I feel like that can take away from the flow. So I would definitely gravitate more towards speaking to everyone about it, to just highlight to everyone how the speaker made the impact. If you're just targeting the speaker, I feel like you could be disconnected from the rest of the club. And the whole point is to connect with everyone and share the insight with them as well. So that would be my preference, but I'd say either one works, but find what works for you and stay consistent with it.
Great. Thank you.
Let's see. I don't think I see any more hands, but
I think we had Evelyn. Evelyn had her hand up.
Yes, I thank you. I did have my hand up, but Bathsheba and I seem to, we both from Brooklyn, so we kind of channel the same thoughts all the time. And because she was called first, she asked the same exact question that I was going to ask, because that is one of the challenges that I have. I have clubs where we have phenomenal speakers. And when I have to evaluate them, I'm like, what am I going to challenge them on? What am I going to tell them to improve? They're awesome. They've given a fabulous speech. How can I even like say, yeah, you could do this, you could do that? What I do find, and I think sometimes it's kind of empty, but what I do find, if they're sitting, I'll tell them to stand. If they're standing, I might tell them to use the space more. And it's difficult because most of my clubs are still meeting in the Hollywood boxes, in the Hollywood squares, I like to call them. So it does present a little bit of a challenge, but that is my difficulty, is finding where to tell them what to improve, how to tell them an area where they can challenge. But Lexi, you've given some great advice on that, and I truly appreciate it. This was a wonderful presentation that you did, and after all, you're the district champion, so I would have expected nothing less. Thank you again.
thank you.
I have a question, Uche.
Go ahead, Uche.
Yeah. Anyway, I have to also commend you, because the first time you spoke, that's when I fell in love, because I love the way you did the evaluation. In my club, you know, I do evaluation a lot at the beginning, but the only time I used to have a problem in closing, at the end. Then when I went back again, I remember, like in high school or when you were in college, it's almost like, evaluation is almost like a speech. Whatever your title is, and also the opening, why are you handling the speech? Why are you giving us the speech? Because if you give a speech and just say stories, I didn't learn anything from it. You just talk. So every speech has something to inspire at the end. For example, it's most like selling a product. I want to sell apple, and I'm telling you why the apple is okay. You got to describe the apple, the type of apple. At the end, you still have to tell us, this is the reason why I want to eat the apple. It took me a while until one of the Toastmasters gave me an example of the apple. And from then, I still swear a little, I still have a little problem deviating at the end. But when I remember the apple, I'm selling because I want you to buy. So I have to pitch so that you buy. And also, going back to evaluation, you have to look at the criteria, what the person is supposed to be done, and what is required for that speech the person is giving. If you don't read that, you're going to drift. And I see that sometimes some people give evaluation, they are not really listening to the evaluation or to the speech. And sometimes they say something, I say, didn't I say that? Then I have to go back to the record, the tape, You see what I did? I say that. So that means the person is not listening. So evaluation needs a perfect attention for you to grab what the person said. Also to know where the person is going. And at the end, did they call a call of action? Did they inspire? So what is he saying? You just tell me a story. So what is the use for that story? So if you can also, I'm still having problem in the end. If you can just give me an example how to close at the end. So that would be much perfect. Let's say, you give example of the apple I'm talking about. At the end, how can you close it that will make people to buy the apple? For me to be inspired that the apple is okay. So if you can give a little pitch at the end, that would be fair.
Yeah, I'll give a shot on your apple example. So tonight, Uche brought the brilliant point of closing an evaluation and how you can end it by using the example of an apple. When you have an apple and you want to sell it, you need to make the impact. What does the apple bring? It brings crispness, it brings freshness, and a feeling of fall. When Uche used this apple as an example of how we need to close our speech, it gave us all the idea that the ending is important to make an impact. And if you include all aspects of that apple and you consider it while you're going to make your evaluation, you can make an even bigger impact. I'm not sure a great example for you, but usually I like to summarize the points, the highlights, everything I've said in the evaluation and end it by using words of encouragement on how if they combined all of this, it can take the speech to the next level and make that big impact, or relating the main topic that the person was talking about and their call to action as a reminder to the entire club. So I don't know if that helped, but
yeah, it helped a lot. Yeah,
okay.
Because you have to summarize the whole points that you made.
Yeah,
Important point at the end, and the person has to challenge themselves about it. Thank you so much.
yes, you're welcome. Next, I see Doriano.
Thank you, Lexi, for fantastic presentation. Can you share with us how can we practice evaluation outside of Toastmasters Club, perhaps to sharpen our observation skills or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's great to evaluate the day-to-day, even the most mundane things, or you're going for a walk and you see the leaves falling and the grass withering away. Make note of everything that you do and think about what about it brings you joy? What about it would you wish was different? And think about everything that you have day to day. If you're talking to someone, if you're alone, and be observant, because part of the evaluation is listening and observing what the speaker says. As Uche said, sometimes people, when giving an evaluation, might miss the main point or miss something. So if you take your everyday life and just start looking at it in a different way, it may help you to open up your mind into what you might be able to use in an evaluation. I hope that helps in some way.
Thank you. Perfect.
Yes. Then next I see Rubina.
Hi, Lexi. Good evening to all here. Rubina Bernardina from Aruba. Thank you for sharing your insights. And I would like to ask you, I've been a Toastmaster for 11 years, and in our position here in the Caribbean, for example, we speak 2 to 3 or 4 languages. So we have to like filter different things before we, give our evaluation. And my personality, I get like too emotional, especially when the speaker is speaking about butterflies and comfort zone and everything. And I do not know how to regulate. And it's like a multisensory, and I want to give all the evaluation points that I can, but I'm learning now how to pick and choose. And I have a big challenge for myself, not coming in time. So how can you help me pick and choose when I'm super enthusiastic? And how do I stay in time? Those are my 2 questions.
My first question for you, are you going overtime? Or
All the time, overtime, all the time.
yeah. So my suggestion would be, I've had the experience where everything fascinates me in the speech and I want to talk about everything. So in that instance, I might pick the 3 things that made the biggest impact to me. Sometimes it's hard in the short amount of time you have to compile your notes, figure out what you're going to say and get up there. But if there were 3 things that really spoke to you that just were a little outside of the realm of everything else, focus on that. And then the other points, I think I mentioned before, you can always talk to the speaker after the club and say, I also love this and this. So keep that in mind, because if you think that you can talk to the speaker again later, you might have an easier time of letting go of everything that you want to say, and see what will make an impact to the speaker as well as everyone that's listening. And then I think if you consider that, it will help you bring down the time, because you won't be talking about as many points. And also, you were talking about the different languages. If you're feeling like overwhelmed or trying to translate in your mind, my piece of advice would just be to take a deep breath, because sometimes we can get in our heads and be like, oh, I don't know. Is this the right way to say it? I'm getting confused. So just take a breath, take a pause, and recenter yourself, because that can help you to stay focused. So I hope that helps.
I have a question.
Yes, Jackie.
Yeah. Okay. So I can I'm an experienced Toastmaster, but the thing is, sometimes, because I know what it was like when I got my first evaluation and the person ripped me apart. And I never want to intimidate anybody because I know how that feels. And I feel sometimes like how Rubina said, compassionate. We put our like my mother would say, we put our heart into it, and a lot of times I don't want to display everything because I rather talk to them privately, like you said, or put it in the evaluation or send it in a private note, because I don't know how he or she may feel. I never gotten anything too touchy, but one time somebody had a speech that was very emotional and I couldn't detach myself from that. How do you do that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I find, depending on the speech, you might have a big connection to it and get emotional about it. And I've definitely had that. And in those instances, I try, it's challenging, but almost disconnect and look at the speech as what, like I said before, what they did well, what they can improve. And if that speech had a big impact on me, I'll show that through how I say things and the message that I'm trying to get out. but it is very challenging, especially if the speech makes you emotional. So I would suggest to pick a few things that you feel you can talk about without getting too emotional. And as you said, you can talk with them later and write it in the evaluation sheet. So if you find things that you feel comfortable with sharing to the entire room, focus on those for when you give the evaluation.
Okay.
And think
Yeah.
about the emotions later.
Okay. Also, I always tell them, like, what can you improve on? I don't say it like that. I say, my example is I use myself and I say, what is the message you want to give your audience or your next audience? And when I do it like that, they're like, oh, wow. They come back to me and they says, thanks for telling me. And these are people who are been in Toastmasters for a very long time, and then some of them are paid Toastmasters who've been doing it for their career. So I feel so proud that I can critique somebody in that level and still feel that I haven't broken them or hurt them, because we're all here for everything to help everybody. Thank you.
I
Thank you
think
so
that's a
much.
beautiful way of phrasing it. And like I was saying before, if you try to be uplifting, we don't want anyone to have the experience that you had of getting
Yeah.
ripped apart. It needs to be constructive and provide value and not discouragement. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's see, I don't see any other hands, but I can check.
There's
the
one more
chat.
hand,
There's
Elliot.
one more hand. Oh, okay. I
Yes,
didn't see
Elliot
that.
just
Go
raised her
ahead.
hand.
Hi. Yeah, congratulations on winning. And I am really impressed by your maturity and your leadership as well. So therefore, I have a leadership question to ask you. When it comes to matching speaker to evaluator, as VPE does sometimes, obviously you match the really good speaker with a really good evaluator. But sometimes when you don't have a choice and you want to be creative, sometimes I will assign a beginning evaluator to a really advanced speaker, knowing that advanced speaker will be okay in case the beginner one says something horrible. But I've been criticized for that too. No, you don't do that. So do you see anything creative about leadership in matching speaker to evaluator?
That's a great question. I know, I think in clubs that I've been in, I was in a very small corporate club, so it was like you take any evaluator that you can get, regardless of experience level. But I think you have a really good point of if you pair the experience together, but it's also about giving the new members the chance to learn. And if they can get up and give an evaluation to an experienced speaker, the speaker might even have some advice for them after the evaluation on what they did well, what they can improve. Because I've even given evaluations, and after it, someone else who was in the audience has given me feedback about my evaluation, and that has helped me to push. And I think that is how I got to the evaluation contest, because I took what people suggested and I researched it and I looked into it. So I think either way can help. If you think that an experienced speaker might be upset with a beginner evaluator, maybe you could have the beginner evaluator go, but in the audience have an experienced speaker also take notes so they can later on give that feedback to the speaker, so that you get the well-rounded, you get multiple evaluations, and you give the new Toastmaster the experience. So that would be my recommendation in those circumstances.
And Lexi, I have a personal question. When you were preparing for the contest, how much time did you prepare to do the how much time did it take for you to create the power words dictionary? Did you spend a certain amount of time every day?
I
Or
wouldn't
do you do that
say,
on a daily basis?
I think that I created the power words for this presentation as an example because it's based on the feedback I have gotten in clubs where I have used words like this and people have pointed that out. So I learned about it by like doing it. And I think sometimes I take like phrases or words that I've heard at work from fabulous speakers or conferences that I've been at, and I really liked how someone's phrased something or that word. But I think over time you can start building it, and if it's not something that you're doing right now, you can, like, even if you want to check out a thesaurus, see what similar words you might be able to use, that might bring you inspiration on how to use these words. But I think for me, it came over time without really realizing it until it was pointed out. And then I started to notice it and add to it. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Does anyone have any more questions for this wonderful champion?
I placed a question in the chat about frameworks. I know that for me, because I do a lot of evaluating and often don't have an opportunity to consult with the speaker prior to doing the evaluation, I use a framework of good, better, best. What was good, what could be better, what was best. Or 3, 2, 1, 3 things that I liked, a couple of things where you might benefit from challenging yourself, and one thing that stood out in your talk. Do you have any of those that you use that you'd like to share?
Oh, I love that. I'm just seeing your comment in the chat now. Right now, I wouldn't say I have certain frameworks. I think similar to what you had said, I don't have like a 3, 2, 1, but I try to highlight the main strengths and focus on that, and then have a less critique of improvement, because I think the encouragement helps. And you had mentioned that you don't always have the opportunity to talk with the speaker beforehand. And that is very relatable. It might happen at clubs, or even if you're a guest somewhere and you're assigned to be the evaluator. So in that instance, I would say, look at the evaluation criteria and think about what you might want feedback on if you were given this speech. And as someone said earlier, what impact does the speaker want to have on the audience? So honestly, I don't really have frameworks as of now. Maybe if I think about it after tonight, I might realize, oh, this is a framework that I have, but I just do it intuitively. So I hope that helps, although I'm not sure it really covered that. Were there any other questions I might have missed in the chat? Let me go through. If you asked a question in the chat, feel free to speak up.
Ronke has another question. Her hand is raised.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
what?
Thank you, Lexi. My question is, can you identify 2 or 3 things what not to say? Thank you.
I don't know about if I have things of what not to say, but the one thing I would like to highlight is how not to say it. Because sometimes if you're giving any sort of criticism or feedback, the tone, how you say things and how your voice projects, there's a very big difference. If you were to say, well, I think you could have done better with this, versus if you say, I think you could have done even better with this, just changing how you say something can make a big impact on how the speaker gets that. But in terms of what not to say, I would say try not to be too negative. Like if you're using a lot of negative words or repeatedly saying you could have done this, you could have done this, if you frame it in a way that's more positive, I think that would be more helpful to the speaker. I hope that gives you some sort of answer.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yes, you know, I remember what happened when I was giving a speech. It was so funny, right? You know, we are taught by British, and America has a way of saying their things. So I said the word. My evaluator said, you better not use that word that way. Don't use the word, you better not use the word that way. I said, who is going to arrest me? Are you arresting me for using the word that way? So at least, you know, after that, she realized the way she said it is improper. But she was calling me, you better not use the word that way. It's not used that way. I said, who is going to arrest me? Are you arresting me now? So you're right. You know, you have to be careful, you know, how you evaluate people. Because sometimes some people, you give them evaluation, you're hurting their feelings. Because you know, there's a power in the word. Your word, you know, your word can build somebody, and the word can tear somebody apart. Even the small children, when you're teaching them your kind of hard tone, they will tell you, I'm not studying anymore, I'm going to bed. So the same thing applies to the adult. You gotta be careful, very meticulous, do diligent when you're talking to adults in evaluation. So you have to pick up the word you use. Let the word be something soft in the heart, even though they are making a mistake. That's what I realized. Thank you.
Yes,
All right, last question by
Marty.
Marty, yes.
It's not a question, it's a comment actually based on what Uche said. I think that this is instructive for all of us. We sometimes dilute the role of the general evaluator. We started on time, things went great, it was an awesome meeting, see you next time. But the general evaluator has the responsibility to provide an opportunity for the evaluators to be better. And that situation that she described, I would hope that whomever was the GE in that meeting pointed out that the way that you deliver a message has everything to do with whether or not it's going to be used. And ultimately, when you are evaluating, you are sharing your impression. And it is exactly that, your impression. And everyone else in the room has their impressions. But the way that you do it is very important, because some evaluation makes a person think, dang it, I want to do that again, and I want to try even harder. And there's some evaluation that pricks them so significantly that they never want to be evaluated again. And sometimes it can lead to them not being willing to speak because they don't want that experience. So remember, when you're an evaluator, hopefully your GE is doing their job and they're giving you that feedback, but sometimes we can evaluate ourselves so that we know that we are being kind and we are delivering information that's going to support people in being better, because that's what brings us together. Thanks for that opportunity.
I think that was very beautifully put, Marty. Thank you for sharing that. And just one last thing for Ronke, because you had asked about what not to say. I think if you are about to say something and you have any doubt in your mind that you might feel hurt if you got this piece of evaluation feedback, maybe don't say it or rephrase it in a new way. So think about how you would feel if you received this form of feedback, and you can use that as a guide.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I'm happy that I could share my experience and my thoughts, and I hope it provided some value so you can go into your next evaluations and feel more confident.
Thank you. Let's all unmute ourselves and give Lexi a round of applause. This was amazing. Thank you so much. We could use this not only for evaluations.
Lexi.
But in our personal lives also, giving feedback to people when you're even talking to people. All these tips apply to regular life too. So I'm so thankful to Lexi for giving us these life lessons.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to be, this is recorded. We're going to post it to our YouTube page, our wonderful PRM, like Jeslie and Jennifer, our social media manager. They're going to post this information. So you can always go back and read all this, and listen to the stories as well, the video.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
See you
Very
next
impressive.
time.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thank-
everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.